Good afternoon. How are you today? Well, I had writing for clients and animals at the place to do things with today. So I feel quite invigorated. Um, it's chilly. It's not terrible. Uh, and I may end up talking, I don't know if you know the station, Newsy. I've appeared on there a couple of times, and it's a lot of fun, and they have a pretty free-ranging discussion. I don't know what time it will be on. It's because it's going to be pre-taped. So what's going on? The Select Committee on the Insurrection is talking about referrals to the Department of Justice, where Garland, as far as we can tell, has done zero about the violations of the law on January the 6th and what people did leading up to it and what they've done since. I think that's a significant step for a number of reasons, because we can't rely on the committee to exist past the midterm elections. And because of that, I think they have to kick themselves in the hindquarters and move quicker. And it appears that they've figured that out themselves. They've had 300 interviews. They have, I think, 9,000 pages of documents. They had a number of interviews last week. They're now asking and seeking to interview members of Congress. They have a couple of fights over whether or not people can be forced to testify in their proceeding. But there are a couple of decisions that a committee like this has to make. One of them is, if you're asking somebody to testify and they have a Fifth Amendment right to remain silent, you can't compel them unless you give them immunity. If you give them immunity, you may destroy any prosecution that may follow that. In the case of Ollie North, back in the Iran-Contra affair, he testified to Congress and he got some immunity for testifying. And after he was convicted, the courts of appeal, they decided that his conviction should be thrown out because he had immunity as a result of what the Hill did. Another thing that the committee is doing, which I think is a good idea, is they're going to issue a report on January the 6th, and then they're going to have hearings after that. So these are very good signs. We have members of Congress who've been invited to appear, and they're saying they don't want to do that. Under the speech and debate clause, they're supposed to be protected for what they say. But again, this is one of these things, a prosecutor wouldn't have a problem with this. I don't know that the Hill will. A good friend of mine, Stan Brand, who was counsel to the Congress for many years, he's not now in private practice, he gave an opinion in the Post. And I would normally defer to him because of his long experience and insight into these matters. And he's been practicing consistently on these things. So he basically can say there's no precedent, which means we'll see what could happen. The other thing that strikes me is Biden is supposed to give a speech on January the 6th. I've already talked about this. I hope that he gets up and he says, well, let me tell you, I think these prosecutions, or at least the investigation to see if we should prosecute, are a good idea. Nothing more dramatic has happened in our history than people trying to take over our government with violence and to refuse to follow what's at the center of our democracy, what an election determined to be true that someone would try to contradict. The Supreme Court, I guess, they're going to have a hearing on vaccinations. That's pretty interesting. This is what I mentioned the other day. There are 80 million employees in firms with 100 or more persons. And under OSHA, they're trying to insist that people either be vaccinated or tested every week. And this, when I say vaccinated, not every week, vaccinated, period, or tested every week to be sure that they're safe. That is, that they can't transmit. And with the very speedy transmission of Omicron, that makes a lot of sense. So the Supreme Court is going to hear that on January the 7th, I believe. So that's going to be a big deal. The Democrats have apparently awakened, according to news stories, to the fact they better do something about voting rights. Well, you waited a whole year while the other side was digging up the trenches and putting in place all manner of inappropriate, unconstitutional, and the kinds of mechanisms that can defeat an opponent in an election, meaning Democrats. But I don't know what they're going to do because the numbers in the House are narrow, and Manchin hasn't shown himself to be much of a revolutionary when it comes to assuring the public that they get a chance to vote. So that's unfortunate. In the category of why the hell do we pay this guy so much? You may remember this fellow Durham was chosen by Barr, the former Attorney General, who was busy doing terrible things when the current Attorney General is busy asleep at the switch. But Barr appointed this guy Durham basically to investigate the investigators. And I think he's come up with 2 small cases, and it's cost the taxpayers $3.8 million. Can you think of something you would do with $3.8 million besides fix up your house, put in a pool, buy that book you wanted? Who knows? Anyhow, that's what I have to say today. If I'm going to be on Newsy, I'll post something on Twitter. In the meantime, have a great day. It's terrific out, and I'll talk to you tomorrow. Bye-bye.